Story Collective, welcome back. Thankful that you're here. We're going to be diving into hospitality today as our third step in the summer season of the season. One of my favorite sentences. And the summer season, as a quick reminder, is about deepening and flourishing into marriage. Like we've said, we're looking at, as we come past that honeymoon season, more everything's new into more rhythms and deepening that understanding of the joys of marriage, and especially early on in marriage. Although, of course, these are applicable across the years as well. So we're going to start off. Taylor Ray is going to have plenty to say on this subject, and we're going to go along on the ride with her. But I'm going to start off by reading to introduce us to the topic, 1 Peter 4, 8 through 11. So here it goes. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling. As each has received a gift, that has a T at the end. Use it to serve one another as stewards. This is tough. Okay. Use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Whoever speaks as one who speaks oral.
Do you want to just start over and you can cut out?
Yeah, I'll start reading this section again. Woo, woo, woo. See if I forget to cut that.
Pila, 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 pila.
Pilo bila peanut butter in my belly, baby, go. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Whoever speaks as one who speaks oracles of God, whoever serves as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. To him be the glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Welcome to the podcast, my love.
Oh, thanks.
Take it away.
Oh, gosh, no.
Tell us about hospitality. Do you have a general statement about what hospitality is from the beginning, or is that too crazy?
Oh, wow. There's so much. Hospitality, we're going to talk a lot about what hospitality is and what it isn't throughout this episode. But first and foremost, we need to know that it is not just a dinner party. It's not just hosting. We can't reduce hospitality down to hosting, because it's not hosting, but it's more than that. Hospitality is about serving others selflessly in many facets of life. So I'm excited to dig in and talk about that. There's so much more we could talk about than what we're going to talk about in this episode. If that's true for every episode, thankfully, we have plans to do our podcast for as long as the Lord lets us. So maybe we can come back to this in the future. But There's three main things I want to talk about. I want to talk about hospitality for the people that already live inside your home. And then I want to talk about hospitality for guests in your home. And then I want to talk about just some practical tips, because I don't think we have to convince anybody that hospitality is a good thing. But even people who agree with that might not know how to do that. And so I wanted to give just some practical tips, things that are really helpful for us as we do host people in our home often, and things that I've learned as being good tricks and things just to remember. So, we'll talk
Lord
through
willing,
those
we're
things.
going to simplify the perspective on hospitality, similar to the view on dating, I think, to some
it's like
degree.
Expanding it and simplifying it at the same time.
And you'll see that anybody at any season and living situation is capable of doing this. We'll get into that more in the practical session.
Yeah.
But I think it's fair to say that when you say it's not just hosting, is that what you said?
Right.
Right? It's not just hosting. I think it's fair to say that anytime you are a part of the facilitating of building community, that is hospitality.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily have to happen in your home specifically, and it doesn't need to be set to such rigorous standards.
Right.
So starting off with, like you said, hospitality to those inside your home. So what does that look like with little ones? Where does that begin? And that idea of working on hospitality for those that are already there all the time.
Yeah. Sorry, there is a cat hair stuck to my lip gloss. So
It can't be.
That's where we're at.
Johnny's been putting on your lip gloss?
Oh my gosh. Sorry. Okay. So the question was, what does hospitality look like in our home with our children and our family? It has a lot to do with homemaking and caring for your home, the keeping of your home, which sounds a lot like housekeeping, and that's because it is. So keeping your home clean, feeding your family, and doing those basic things, which I'm still relatively a young wife. There's still lots of these things that I'm actively trying to figure out and learn. I would highly, highly, highly recommend the book Simplified Organization by Misty Winkler. I am not done with this book, but I am cruising through it. Josh got it for me for Mother's Day, which was not even 2 weeks ago, and I'm almost done. And it has already transformed the way that I'm taking care of our home. And it's really amazing because it's not just about, oh, here's some tips and tricks for how to keep a cleaning routine. It's far, far beyond that. It's all about your attitude and how your home reflects and how you care for your home reflects your character. So it's really tied in here. There's a great chapter on hospitality, which I'm going to quote a couple things from her that are so wonderful in this podcast. But all that to say, it does come back to housekeeping and homemaking. And so I think that a lot of people can say housekeeping, like, I'm not an apron wearing kind of person. Like, that's not my vibe. But as a Christian and as an adult member of your family, specifically if you're a wife, there's a special instruction here for you to care for your home and care for your family as you manage your household. And this is and maybe it does feel belittling. And honestly, that's okay. This is a foot washing type of service, which, Josh, if you want to explain, give a little quick summary of John 13, what that means.
Sure. Absolutely. One of my favorite places. This is Jesus.
I thought you would like it.
in brief summary, yes, this is Jesus with all the disciples around the table when he strips down to a cloth, merely takes off his outer garments, and so he is dressed as a servant, and he bends down to each of the disciples, to their nasty sandal, dirt and disgustingness-ridden feet, and washes each of them, taking himself from he went from the right hand of the throne of God to earth, to the lowest position on earth as the servant kneeling before the disciples to cleanse them, as representation of Jesus washing of us. And then my favorite part of it is, as I've probably said in multiple episodes at this point, Peter saying, "You won't wash me, Lord," and he says, "You don't understand what I'm doing, but later you will." And then he says, "Okay, then not my feet, but also my hands and my head, like wash all of me." And Jesus says, "If you have been washed, you do not need to be, if you have been, what is this? Saved or cleansed?" Yeah, look into it for me there. You don't need to be washed except for your feet. So that's that continuous renewal and sanctification. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, it's so good. And the reason why, I was reading my notes for a second, so you maybe said this, but let me just double down if you did. But the reason why Peter protests is because it is humiliating work that Jesus is doing. This is the work of the servant, that he would clean the filth off of the feet of the people who enter into the home. And he is the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings, creator of the universe in human form. And so Peter understandably is like, whoa, you should not be doing this. And then Jesus' response is obviously incredible and impactful for all of us.
The line that I was losing is Jesus saying, "The one who is bathed does not need to wash except for his feet, but is completely clean."
Yeah. So wonderful. So clearly Jesus has reason to be doing this, and he's showing an example of servant leadership and how he humbles himself. And if Jesus can humble himself, if Jesus, again, the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings, can humble himself to the level of a servant, then we can too. And we should be encouraged to do so by the Lord himself. So is it humbling work? Yes. Good. Do it anyways. Like I said, I was going to quote from this book that says, if hospitality is building up the body of Christ, it must begin within our own families and then overflow to others. Otherwise, it is likely not true Christian hospitality, but something we do so that others will think well of us. And so if you only clean up your home when there's guests coming to your home and you're not caring for your home for your husband and your kids, if I'm speaking to wives, then we've got a problem there. That was a thing that was very convicting to me months ago. I realized I care so much more about what other people think about our home than when my husband, thinks of our home, which reflects a lot on my character. And so that's when I was like, I got to figure this out and how to care for our home as a way to love you, even though you never really complained, you never gave me attitude about it, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. In fact, you could go from having a pigsty of a house to an immaculate home, and your husband or kids may never act like they notice or say anything. That doesn't mean it's not worth doing, because it's for the glory of God. And then one more quote from Misty Winkler's book, Simplified Organization. Going back to the foot washing, housekeeping is the most basic type of service, a foot washing sort of service that we often think is beneath us, but that Jesus expressly commands. It is foolishness to the world, but it is a good work God calls us to walk in, a good work that he blesses.
This is...
And that's a book about like organizing your home. How amazing is that?
It sounds great.
Yeah.
This reminds me a reflection of 1 Corinthians 1:18, which is the word of the cross is folly to those who are perishing,
Yes.
but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God.
Yes, absolutely.
Same sort of representation, like Jesus, what are you doing? Stooping down to this level. And if you are looking at that backwards, like you shouldn't be serving, then you're going to have warped expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are the greatest commandments that Jesus gives us? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And there's no closer neighbor to you than the people who live in your very same bed or in the room across the hall. And so if we're going to love them, love not put into action isn't love at all. Like we talk about this all the time. Love isn't just a feeling. Again, it's not a feeling, but it's so much more than that. Love is an action. And so you need to put your money where your mouth is and put your feet to the ground and get working and care for your family. Because if you're only doing it for people outside of your family, what does that say about your priorities and what you really care about? Because I know for myself, it really reveals my pride and that I care more about what other people think about what I look like rather than who I actually am day to day in my family's life. So anyways.
What's the title of the book?
Simplified Organization.
Simplified Organization.
Yeah.
If you think it was a risky move to purchase Simplified Organization for your wife for Mother's Day, reflect on what blessings I have and who my wife is.
It's so good. I think the subheading, if I remember correctly, is amazing. It's learning to love what must be done. Which is incredible. Good. Yeah. So that's all we'll say for right now about hospitality inside your home. It's a topic we can definitely come back to in the future, as we might, and certainly we'll talk about homemaking more. But it's just important to remember, and this is a great transition to the next part, as we talk about hospitality for people who come from outside of your home, is that even when they're not usually there every single day, it's not about appearance. It's not about your pride or how hospitality makes you look.
Mm-hmm. And this is not literally that, also as a side note, it's not literally that your house has to be perfectly put together at all times.
Yeah, that's a great point.
This is just like always, and this comes into every subject, it's the posture of your heart behind it. Just are you being slothful and passive and unconcerned with the status of the home? So it may be that you have too much stuff and things need to be downsized.
Everything
and organized,
needs to have a place.
but it needs to have somewhere to go, and the family functionality needs to be able to smoothly continue. So with major operations, like recurring operations, like stuff with cars, dishes, laundry, things that need to be consistently functional.
Yeah, in routine.
Just needs to be in a routine, and the heart behind it is like Luke 17. You also, when you have done all that was commanded of you, say, we are unworthy servants. We have only done what was our duty.
Yeah.
We are servants of Christ, just like that Christ representing a servant in John 13. We get to be little representatives of Christ, and then daily to our families and in our homes.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And like Taylor was saying, speaking more to wives, as that is typically going to, like, more of that responsibility of caring for the household is going to be diverted to the wife. There's still plenty to be shared with the husband, but again, that gets in the category of you're not looking for who's doing more. Like there was a book I started listening to over the summer because I knew it was going to be just out of control based on the title and subtitle. It was called Equal Partners, I think. I might buy the book and read the whole thing one day so you guys don't have to. I can tell you about it. But
Josh played a part of the audiobook to me and I laughed hard, and Josh said that's exactly where I laughed. And you guys, it wasn't supposed to be funny.
Yes, it was basically all about how you needed to build up resentment against your husbands because a majority of these situations were wives building resentments towards their husbands because they're not taking on their share of the weight of the responsibilities.
Yeah.
There is the warped and distorted heart posture fully in action and then being encouraged. That's the last verse of Romans 1. This is fitting. It's going to sound extreme, but the last verse of Romans 1 is, though they know that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them, which follows a massive list of all kinds of distortions of God's design. So that just fits in there into just creating and encouraging brokenness.
Yeah.
Oh, but I was going to say also, I think as a good transition to make sure we touch on it, is making sure that with the heart of serving your family, as it would then transfers to those who are coming into their home, that produces that consistency that helps you avoid the falling into having that major anxiety and rushing and demanding of your husband, children, whatever the shared living situation is. And
I'm
maybe
sure
parents,
everyone
family.
has experienced your mom's throwing a party, and then an hour before there's like panic that ensues, and maybe you get yelled at, maybe you just get the look that's terrifying, and there's so much like tension in the home, and you're like trying to help, and it's like, go clean your room. You're like, the party's not in my room, why do I need to go clean my room? And just the stress that happens. So I feel like everyone's experienced that. No shame to my mom. Like, I think all moms do that. I know that I've had like really stressful moments, especially when we were first married and first started hosting things. That was just like, this is how I know how to prepare for things, be stressed about it, and not have those rhythms. It leads to that. So that's something that we need to avoid, because again, if you are going to open the door to your guests and say, hello, welcome, we're so glad you're here, but 20 minutes before you were screaming at your children or your husband, no, we don't do that. That is so wrong. It's not the heart of hospitality. It's so built on like pride, insecurity, and of course pride, because those go hand in hand.
Putting on some sort of mask there to cover up the lack of preparedness for the situation, and also probably over concern for the actual appearance.
Right.
Because if you weren't prepared, the more important thing is sharing the time with the people. So adjust as much as is necessary to have your table cleared to eat a meal. Beyond that, stop worrying so much about it, and then for the next time you can be more prepared. But to take that out aggressively on whoever you're sharing the home with at the time that is helping you, that's not loving.
Yeah. I want to speak to two things with that. So when you said this a moment ago too, but just talking about like the functionality of your home. So just like, again, this is going back to, just for a moment, the hospitality to people who already live in your home, your husband and your children. So functionality goes so far as, one, to keep your place organized and clean, and to care for your home, so that it can be functional. But there's the other end of the spectrum, which is so far from who I am as a person. I would love for this to be my problem, but it's a problem nonetheless. Of if you are so hyper organized and so focused on cleanliness that your children like don't have any toys, or like no shade on the neutral moms, I get it, I love an aesthetic, but like everything needs to be like so organized and go with the decor that like your kids don't have any colorful toys, you don't have anything that they like to play with, and they like, there's just no real functionality in the home because you're so focused on the cleanliness rather than letting your home be a space that's lived in, because your home is for the people. The people aren't for cleaning the home.
Yeah, and it's for the people, not the Pinterest. Also.
Hashtag. That's good.
The ridiculous just shelves covered in all kinds of random nonsense that I see in your Pinterest pictures regularly. It's
cute. Okay, let's home decor conversations for another time. I'm all about making your home beautiful, but not at a way that like takes away from functionality.
Yeah.
We have a huge blank wall in our house that's been there for 3 years, and I don't know what to put up on it because I don't want it to be cluttered, because my husband doesn't like clutter, but I'm like, blank walls, I hate it, and Josh loves a blank wall.
We have plenty of functionality. It's just as long as the functionality for your family comes before the aesthetic.
Right.
That's the most important step, I think, on this topic specifically. But I asked you probably about a year ago about this specifically, just to make it personal.
Oh, I'm nervous.
In the preparing, when I told you that I needed you to be more
for parties.
yeah,
Yes.
be looking further ahead to
Mm-hmm.
having other people coming to help you, because a lot of times what ended up happening, and this is, and again, this just fits into our unique scenario, but other people may have similar, or
Yeah.
if it's
Or like on a Saturday.
if it's on a weekend, it could fit to this too, but it would end up being where
I'm
I
throwing a party for
expect,
my friends, and then I'm
yeah.
like, Joshua, can you do this and that and this and that? And you weren't expecting to have the full day.
Yes, I was expecting to have some sort of normal work day, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, and then it's like, oh, I need all of this to be done and in record time. And,
Yeah.
So that's something that you've worked on tremendously. We threw the ultimate birthday party last week.
Yeah.
That was amazing. We have it's like 75% of the people that we're closest to were born in May. And so we had a joint birthday party that Taylor Ray did an amazing job preparing for. And I had to do a lot of preparation before that, but we knew it was coming for a long time.
Yeah.
I was more prepared for that one. So
Yeah.
we're getting
But that was the first one in a while where you
Mm-hmm.
actually had to do a lot of work, because I've gotten better at preparing in advance
Yes.
and asking for help if I need it from a friend who's coming earlier, and also getting better at like delegating help to different people.
Yes,
and all
because
those
husbands should, of course, be willing to assist with these things, but it needs to be clear that it can fit the schedule and have information about it leading up
Right.
Ahead of time.
All goes back to communication. So if you've got like
Yes.
older kids that you expect to help you, you need to communicate to them your expectations and communicate them, a week in advance, and tell them if this isn't done by that day, we're gonna have a problem. So like make sure this is done, and then just communicate with everything. So that can be helpful. So there was two things I wanted to speak to, but I kind of forgot the second one, and we should keep going because we're not really into the second part yet much.
So what have we got here? We've gotten inside the home.
We're
with
talking
our
about the
family.
difference between hospitality and just entertaining guests. So we talked about
Tell
that.
me about it.
We talked about that a little bit. I'm going to read one more quote from Misty. There might be another one. I shouldn't lie. But this is the last one I think I can remember. So Misty Winkler, Simplified Organization. Entertaining is about impressing others and making ourselves look up. I don't know if I wrote that down right. Hospitality is about serving others and sharing life. The dictionary defines hospitality as the quality or disposition of receiving and treating guests and strangers in a warm, friendly, generous way. Yes, that's right. Part of the very definition of the word hospitality has to do not with your home, but with your attitude, your disposition, your heart. So I love that. It's not, if you're asking like what is hospitality, it is far less about what it looks in action and what it looks like in your heart, which I think is really wonderful. At the same time, hospitality can be hard because it is taking away from your own life, your own routines, and laying them down for someone else coming into your home and caring for them. Or again, not even in your home, but just doing life with someone else, which can be difficult at times, but definitely worth it because that's what the Lord asks of us. And there's a lot of fruit from it.
Amen. Don't know what's next.
Okay, I'll just keep talking.
Please.
But I have questions written down. So I'm just going to ask and answer it myself, or you can jump in. But the question of why is hospitality towards outsiders even necessary? And shouldn't the home be a private place just for family? Certainly some people think that. What are your thoughts on that?
I was thinking, let's go to some more scripture here. Galatians 6:7-10 says, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. For the one who sows to his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption, but the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life. Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith." I just wanted to find a time to read this for sure. One, because God is not mocked. One of my most commonly thought of just in my own thought life verses in looking at things that are going on in a corrupt, God-averse nation that we're currently living in. And then seeing that sowing to the own flesh, so this goes to the heart behind why you're doing everything, and the one who sows to the Spirit, so we're seeking to glorify God in all that we do, in every action. And then in in doing good, in acts of godliness, we will reap the rewards. And we need to see this much more as spiritually, because the rewards here in the lives of the eternal souls of your children and family and those strangers, visitors, church family who enter into your home you're getting to steward part of that in this process. And then to do good to everyone, and especially to those of the household of faith. I wanted to also make sure that because I was thinking about this in preparation for this conversation, especially to the household of faith is so important, because these are already our brothers and sisters in eternity. That we have begun to live into now, even while we are here on this earth. And so to those inside, we're given just by God's word a special call to those inside the church, and then to those outside, we are to be lights of the Father.
Right.
So we want to bring people into that to see that.
Yeah, to bring someone who doesn't walk with the Lord inside of a home that is filled with the Holy Spirit, filled with a husband and a wife and children who are seeking after the Lord. And Josh picked up a wonderful habit of many months ago to read from Psalms or Proverbs, depending on if we're sitting in the kitchen at the kitchen table or the dining table. But reading a Psalm or a proverb before we eat dinner, and then that's so wonderful. And I know that was intentional for you. So when other people came into our home, that was the regular practice that they got to experience when they came in.
I love doing this, even when people aren't here. It probably averages like 4 days a week that we do start, 4 or 5 days a week, starting dinner with a chapter from one of those. But absolutely every time that we have someone over here, make sure to go through it. And we have a lot of Christian brothers and sisters come and visit us, but anybody to have that as a regular practice. And then I've also gotten the joy of people reflecting back to me later that they've added that into their own practices. Like Christians, all of us should be doing this.
Yeah, and you kind of picked that up because we went to a friend's house this was years ago who they read the Bible, and they read hymns or sing hymns before or during dinner every night.
Yes, exactly. So make it a practice, because it will encourage other Christians to do that also. Yeah. Spread it, and it's so simple, and it'll guide your prayer. Yeah. It helps to focus in. The prayer before dinner reminds you of the immensity, the unspeakable riches of God's goodness in some little way from that psalm or proverb to guide you into prayer. And it's not necessarily as random going into prayer before dinner. Yeah. So it's so good.
Yeah. So hospitality for people outside of our home is necessary because it's the way that we steward the gifts that God has given us. Because we only have our home because God has allowed us to purchase it and to live inside of it. So that's a gift from the Lord, and we're meant to steward all the gifts that the Lord has given us for His glory. And so whether that's through evangelism or discipleship or fellowship, we're using that gift for the glory of God to care for others. And that's so important.
Yes. And so then, though, the reason we talked about that major stress leading up to some kind of event that's classic of moms around the nation is because there is some level of difficulty in that preparation. Yeah. I think you can make it easier on yourself, like we're trying to encourage and trying to practice.
Yeah, we'll talk about some tips in a little bit.
Still, it is an adjustment of the schedule. It's preparing extra food, extra space, being ready for that. So how often should we be doing this thing? Is it really worth the difficulty of that preparation? And what about people who feel like they're not ready to handle something like that? Like regularly having people come into their home or their apartment, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think that as Christians, we need to expect for there to be demands on our home. If you are a mature Christian, if you have a mature Christian marriage, you should expect or at least hope that people will want to spend time with you and spend time in your home. We've been really blessed to have multiple college-aged young women who have loved to come into our home and ask for our advice and just spend time with us. And so we've hosted them for dinner many times. We've had them just hang out with us while we reorganize the pantry or whatever. And so when you are a couple or even by yourself, you are seeking after the Lord, it should be expected and desired that people would want to spend time with you and spend time in your home. So you should expect it, even if you don't feel like it's easy, because it's not. Love comes at a cost. Like it's a sacrifice for a reason. It's love in action, and it's good work. So it's okay to feel stretched, and it's also okay to feel like you're not doing it perfectly. We're learning all the time. I meant to say this at the start, but obviously I'm still learning how to do this. I guess I did allude to that a little bit earlier. And maybe at some point in doing this podcast, I'll stop needing to explain, like, I'm still figuring it out, I'm still learning how to do it. Because I hope that you would assume that. I hope that you would assume that listening to us speak about these things, that we don't have them down 100%, whether that's like talking about hospitality or date nights or communication or any of those things. It's not that we're 100% in it all the time or are perfect at it all the time, but we're always growing in it. And so if you're at a different quote unquote level, if you're not as practiced, that's okay, but you practice it and you get better at it. And not that you get better at and you will inherently get better at hosting and those practical tips that we'll talk about in a little bit that will come with it, but you'll get better at having the heart of readiness. To love someone is to be interruptible. Is to let them interrupt your lives and shake things up for their care.
That was my favorite and most impactful thing from, I don't remember what the title was, but that Mr. Rogers biopic sort of thing when Tom Hanks was Mr. Rogers.
I don't remember that from Mr. Rogers, but nice.
Well, there was just a major focus on how they always struggled with keeping the production schedule because anytime he met somebody new or just got into a conversation with someone, he said, forget any obligations that are upcoming because this person is what's of most importance right now.
Yeah.
And it's not like he was constantly having to express that. It's just they couldn't get him away from people.
Yeah. That is hospitality.
Slowing down. So I think related to that is, what about if you don't know a lot of people and you're nervous to it feels like a big step to just invite someone into your home.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. There's this is a quote from another podcast that we really love to listen to. If you haven't ever heard of the Bright Hearth podcast, that podcast has really shaped me and helped me grow so much as a homemaker, a wife, and a mother. So would highly recommend that podcast. But this, Lexi Sauvé says this in this podcast, and she says, when you feel inadequate for hospitality, pray that God would make you what that person needs, not what you want them to think of you. And I thought that was so impactful because you think that you might think that you need your house to be perfect, but hey, your house is lived in, and that's what your house is for, so that's okay. You might think, what did Nick say? Our pastor this Sunday said, like, when someone comes over and you're like, oh no, my hair isn't combed and I don't have any sparkling water. We've said that a couple times in just the last few days because it was so funny. But like, you think you need to be all prepared and you don't necessarily need those things. You probably don't need them at all. Someone comes into your home and maybe what they just need is for you to ask how you can pray for them and to pray for them right then. Maybe you're like, oh man, I don't have like any ingredients to make fresh food, but I got some leftovers if you want any. And they're like, actually, I didn't eat breakfast today. I would really love that. Thank you so much. Like, and it's, you just had leftovers. You had nothing special, but you're able to serve them and love them. And just pray that you would meet their needs, not that you would be built up in pride because you were the perfect hostess, because it's not about hosting. It's about hospitality.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Cool. There's this quote, and I've heard it from multiple places. I'm not sure exactly. When I Googled it, it seems like it's from somebody named Renee Garrison. No idea who this is, but this quote says, hospitality is the act of making people feel at home, even when you wish they were. So it's like, maybe you weren't ready. Maybe hospitality, we've said this a million times already, hospitality is hard sometimes. Think about, when do you think hospitality is the hardest for you?
I don't know. I'm just, do you think you have an answer for me?
I 100% do.
Because I'm just thinking, typically it feels like, I actually just have, I'm sure this is a common experience, but where it's like something that changes the schedule at all can feel so bothersome, and then once I get into actually having people there. Like by the end of the time, it's always worthwhile.
Sure.
So there's some, at times, possibly some level of spiritual attack in that, to just me not wanting to be around people.
Sure.
But I always love it. And by the end, so I'm always thankful to have invited people over.
Yeah, but you do love routines. You're a huge routine guy. So that is hard for you. But I was going to say, for you, tell me if I'm wrong, but when it gets to be past like 9:15.
Oh, yes. Okay. I always take this tip with you. I always ask people, when did you expect, like, when did you need to leave by?
Yeah.
Early on, and then can follow it up with, oh, perfect. We usually are in bed by 9:30, right? Something like that. Or
you're like setting
expectations are clarified.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's super good, and that's really helpful. But at the same time, sometimes someone really needs you. Someone's going through a hard time, and if you've established yourself as a discipler, somebody who is there for them, somebody who knows the word and can walk with them through a hard season, and it's one of those times, you put aside bedtime and you're there for them. That doesn't mean you can't set boundaries if you're like, I've hit a wall and there's not much more else I can do, like, let's pray together. That's okay too. You can have like boundaries, but love means being interruptible, and hospitality is the act of making people feel at home even when you wish they were. And I just thought that was an iconic line. But yeah, I also love that when we hit our limits, that's when all we have left is to rely on the strength of the Lord. We should always be relying on that. But when we hit our limits, when it's past our bedtime, when we have so much on our plate, we can't handle anything else, and someone knocks on our door, that's when we rely on the strength of the Lord. So that's really important.
That's where getting and asking, because this is probably going to be rare. Praise God for opportunities when you get to be involved in something deep and impactful in someone's life, but it means it's going to be relatively rare for those situations. That's why this is important, just to ask legitimate questions at any given opportunity. Get to the heart of what's going on. I think that's another part of being hospitable. And I also think it's time to kick down to our practical tips, because we've been here for quite some time.
No, that sounds good to me. But yeah, I totally agree that I just want to like affirm that really quick, that like hospitality, yes, it's like asking deep questions. It's not just like, oh, I threw this wonderful dinner party, and let's like, hey, throw a wonderful dinner party. Your girl loves dinner parties. You should have seen our Amalfi Coast inspired dinner party we had for the birthday party. It was so much fun. There were so many sweet details, and my friends really appreciated it, and I got to like love on them and care for them and celebrate them and all their May birthdays, and it was so fun, and it was just like a party and a good time.
I didn't know where we were. Amalfi Coast is new for me, but I loved it. It was a great party.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I have to take credit for this, but I need to give it as a recommendation to everybody, is that if you're able to have some sort of joint birthday party, we did a white elephant gift exchange.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Which I love doing at Christmas time. And so we did that in exchange for needing to buy people gifts separately, and then it was a lot of fun, because it always is. And then Taylor Ray got each person an individual birthday card that everybody can sign, which is also extra special. So
yeah, and so that is where I think the birthday cards took it from like hosting to hospitality, where it was like intentional relationship and fellowship, because everyone, specifically for the birthday folks, which was 7 out of 10 of the people there, got to receive like sweet encouragements from all of their friends in a card that we all spent time writing. So that was fun, and like great conversation at the dinner table. So anyways, love a dinner party, all that to say, but real hospitality comes in deep conversations and investing in someone's life by asking them personal questions, and not just like, hey, how are you? Okay, great. Well, good to see you. But like actually investing in them. Because that's like comes at an emotional cost.
And that's much easier when you slow down enough to have someone in your home.
Right.
It becomes much more natural than trying to fit it into
or just to
spend
intentional time with them at a coffee shop or
that's fair.
Or whatever.
Just when you set aside time for someone.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so practical tips, honest encouragement. Let's do it. I have this split up into 3 brief sections. We've got practical homemaking tips for hospitality for when guests are expected, for when they're unexpected, which we talked about a little bit already, and then how to have hospitality when you're not in your dream home for hosting. If you're like, I don't live in a 2,000 square foot home with a guest room and a backyard patio and all those things, we'll talk about that. So we'll just kind of hit these bullets. I'll just like read through them, and if any of you have thoughts, you can hop in, because I know you're ready for bed. It's 8:30. Okay, so like I said, expected guests. Oh, actually, hold on. This is a quote, right? What do I have in my notes here? Oh, yeah. This is so good. Don't think about hospitality being an event, but a habit. A habit which is built on all of your other habits, like specifically homemaking habits. And so this is big for leftovers. We'll come back to that. But this is like, let's build this into our lives, because we should be having hospitality. So let's just not make it a one-off event, but it doesn't catch us off guard when we build it into our lives. So anyways, expected guests. I really love to recommend, because it can be stressful.
Honey.
Oh, yeah?
I think we need to do when you're not in your dream home first.
Okay.
Because we need to get everybody into the mindset that this is for you, so that none of what follows in these expected and unexpected get ignored, because it's universally applicable.
I love it. Let's do it.
So let's start with the last section.
Okay.
Ooh, I can start us off because I love the first one. This is my parents, and I love that you said this, because I always look forward to it. It's when we get picked up from the airport, my parents always bring water for sure, and almost always snacks of some sort of bag of.
Yeah, definitely apples, granola bars, Shane's favorites, Josh's brother.
Yeah. They're just extra. It's always got to be under the seat for Shane to survive.
Honestly, it might be. But yeah, whenever they pick us up from the airport, like the moment it's like, welcome to Oregon, welcome to our car, you're here, let us care for you, like the moment that they see us. And so I think that's so sweet and such a good example of hospitality. So I mentioned that to Josh, and he was like, yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, so depending on what's the word for the environment, but like the weather situation where you live. Climate. I was looking for that word earlier today. Where were you?
Where were you?
Depending on the climate you're in, clearly you can more easily keep certain foods in your car in general, just for having people with you.
June in Arizona, not a good idea to keep plastic water bottles in the car. That's nasty.
So you have this as a later point of having medicine, snacks, sparkling water to give people extra fancy options for drinks, but just being prepared for filling people's simple needs.
Yeah, I know. I put medicine. That might seem kind of random, but you would not believe how often a friend is like, I have a really bad headache, I have cramps, like, do you have any medicine? I'm like, I got some dye-free acetaminophen, let me hook you up. And so I can give like a pain med or an allergy. Well, we have a cat. Okay, if you own a cat or a dog, you should have allergy medicine in your home. Get some Zyrtec and just have that for your guests. I need to buy more actually, because ours was expired, so I threw it out. Don't let me forget. So just like having stuff in your home or sometimes in your car to be able to have hospitality for the people that are welcomed into your life. Another thing, we're going to talk about plastic water bottles for a second. I'm not a fan of plastic water bottles. I don't drink from them regularly. Not into it. Microplastics are bad for you. However, I do like having plastic water bottles in our home. For whatever reason, your family loves to drink out of them, and so they tend to buy extra ones when they're here. But
it could not be filtered enough.
No, so funny. Most plastic water bottles are filled with tap water, you guys. Like, it's just propaganda, whatever.
Whose tap is filling these things?
It's like, Dasani, Aquafina, all these are like filled with tap water. I'm not even kidding. Look it up. Anyways, that's a side tangent, but plastic water bottles I love to have in the home. My mom is really sweet about this. Every time I leave her house, she's like, do you have water? Do you want to take a water bottle with you? And I just love that. And I love that you can do that for a friend who's leaving your home. And they're like, oh, I got to get back to work. I've got a long drive. Do you need a water bottle? Like, do you want to take something with you? Or like you've got a salesman showing up at your door and you're like, thanks so much, please leave, but here, take a water bottle with you. Like, you don't want them to sell you something, but you can be hospitable to anyone who's at your doorstep. So I think that's wonderful.
I'm thinking about the likely actual spaces you're going to have where you're going to be considering these things, which would be like from dorm room to apartment to, it could be like campus apartment sort of thing, to actual normal apartment city life.
You're at a house, but you have like 5 roommates.
Roommates in a house, living with family, and then having your own home, with obviously varying spaces and layouts, that kind of thing. Also, distances away from people that you're close to. If you don't live near your church community, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different options, which
Variables,
each
yeah.
hold their own opportunities. But it's really, I just love that it's inviting people to spend time with you, and the space is not as relevant to that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's one of the most helpful points on adjusting for hospitality. Is it's like just exemplifying that you are less important than the people that you're interacting with.
Yeah, which
so you're
means
inviting
like
them in.
Yeah, so like for us, we live minimum 23 minutes on a good day from our church with no traffic, which it's in Phoenix, so there's a lot of traffic sometimes. So we're at a distance, and so when it's like, hey, like I'd love to get together and spend time with you. I'll come to you. We'll go, with other moms from church. It's like, let's go to a park that's closer to you, and things like that. So meeting them where they're at. To show love to them, especially if they've got like a newborn baby, or if there's anything you can do to care for them, to not like ask more of them than you're willing to serve them with. But speaking of which, again, we've said this, but it doesn't have to be in your home. That doesn't mean that doesn't come at a cost. So an example is a couple hours ago in the mom's group chat from church, I sent like, I'm thinking about going to the splash pad tomorrow. Does anybody want to come and meet us there? So that's a great way to just like send an open invite, or to invite anybody in particular, and just invite relationship and fellowship. But that can come at a cost, because I don't know, I don't have my phone on me, so maybe somebody did respond, but it can be embarrassing. It's not, I don't really care, but like you run the risk, maybe if you're concerned, of sending out an invite and nobody responds and nobody goes with you. That could be discouraging, but we do it anyways, because that's a way to show love and care for your church family or community or friends. So I think that's an important thing to mention. But yeah, you can still serve one another if you don't have a space. So like, let's say you live with family members. We're about to live with Josh's parents for 3 months of the summer. So it's not like we live in our own house with our one child. So we've got plenty of space and an ability to host these dinner parties for most of the year. But a quarter of the year we're living with his parents, and we don't have those same opportunities in the same way. So we do know what we speak with these things as well. But you can still, as you're building new communities, say, we could bring dinner to your house, or let's go meet at the park, and we can both bring food and bring our kids, and we'll just have a good time at the park, or whatever that looks like. So there's lots of options.
The opportunities are limitless. And the last one that needs to be added to this for sure is just inviting people to go with you to church.
Yep.
Which I could certainly do much more often. It's hard. I definitely hold on to the excuse of, how am I going to convince them to go 30 minutes each direction?
Yeah.
On top of it, like, you're going to have to ride with us, whatever, excuses.
Yeah.
Let me just read this Charles Spurgeon quote. It's one of the greatest quotes I've ever read.
Okay.
Quote, "If sinners be damned, at least let them leap to hell over our dead bodies. And if they perish, let them perish with our arms wrapped about their knees, imploring them to stay. If hell must be filled, let it be filled in the teeth of our exertions. Let no one go unwarned and unprayed for." End quote.
Yeah, so good. That is an awesome quote. All right, well, I'm sweating. Should we jump back into the
let's
other
go
practical
to the
tips?
Expected and unexpected visitors.
Okay, I'm going to blow through these. This is real practical stuff. Okay, so expected visitors, there's enough things that go into planning, whether it's a dinner party or just a couple coming over, or one person, sometimes if you're planning a whole dinner, whatever that looks like. If it's more of a formal, like, yes, it's hosting, it's still hospitality. Consider having a couple of quote unquote like hosting outfits. I know that can sound kind of silly, but let's remove as much of the guesswork as possible. I have a couple of dresses that are super comfortable. I can wear them while I'm cleaning and cooking and just throw an apron on over it, be totally comfortable, and then take the apron off, be ready to go for dinner and be set to go. But I have plenty of other things to think about as I'm preparing to do a nice host dinner. So removing one variable is really helpful. So consider having a couple of hosting outfits. Along the same line, specific meals that are great for hosting for groups, especially if you've got like picky eaters or people with allergies, like having a couple of go-tos that you know are going to work well and that are tried, true, and tested. It's not a great idea to try out new recipes when you're hosting people. I still fall into the trap sometimes because I'm like, oh, this would be so good. I don't have time to test it out earlier in the week, but it'll probably be fine. We all do it sometimes. It's not best practice. You're going to have a better experience if you're like, I've made this a million times. I know how long it takes me, what I can make in advance and what I have to make right then and all of that, or what time I need to start the sauce, whatever it is, it's great to just know what to expect and get that done. And you might feel like, well, I make this every time they come, this is going to be boring. Well, if you only see them like, every couple of months, it's going to be a special thing for them, even if you eat it every week. Josh loves we call it my pizza pasta.
Every other day.
And he asks for it multiple times a week, and it lasts us days. So like as soon as we run out, he's like, want to make that super pasta? And I'm like, okay, I guess. So I just make this pasta, and we eat it all the time, but it's also really great for hosting. And so that's what I make for hosting a lot. Love a pasta bar for hosting. And the reason why is because you can do so many variations really simply. It's really inexpensive, and you can do a gluten-free option and a dairy-free option and all of that really simply. So yeah, so even if it feels like it's not special for you, it's probably special for your guests. And then along the same lines of having those options is just having in your pantry some gluten-free and dairy-free options. So again, going back to the pasta, that's perfect because you can have it like without cheese, there's no dairy. And then I always just have in our pantry some this brown rice penne pasta from Trader Joe's. All of my gluten-free friends love it. I don't think it's half bad for it being without gluten, and I love gluten. So it's a solid pasta, and it's just in our pantry. I never run out of it. I always get more before the next batch is gone, because if someone comes over and they're like, oh, I can't eat gluten, no worries, let me put this in the pot, it'll be ready in 10 minutes, and boom, bam, ready to go. Continuing on with, I should have mentioned this earlier, but of like having the hosting outfits. I know that might sound kind of silly, but I promise it's so helpful. At the same time, get yourself ready at least an hour before your guests arrive, especially for the big parties. This is so helpful because, again, you've got a lot going on. It can feel overwhelming, and then you're like making all this food and you're stressed and you're like, oh shoot, I need to get ready. And you're getting ready, you're putting on your makeup and you're doing your hair and you're changing your clothes, and guests are arriving, but you're hidden away in your bathroom or your bedroom. That's not hospitable. That's not welcoming to your guests. And so I would so much rather still be stirring the sauce in the pot on the stove and be totally dressed and ready to go, because that doesn't stop my guests from feeling unwelcome. Not that they're going to be like, oh, they're not ready.
Unclean.
Yeah, I gotta leave. This is so embarrassing for them. But it's like someone is more likely to apologize, like, oh, I'm sorry you weren't ready yet. If you're like, I'm so sorry, you got like curlers in your hair or whatever it is, your makeup's half done, they're gonna say, I'm so sorry, like, are you okay? Like, can I help? And then be more frantic, versus if I'm just like, oh, come on in, I'm just stirring this mac and cheese, it'll be ready soon. That is so much better and so much more welcoming.
This is why I'm just always dressed and prepped for any occasion.
Okay, that's not true. You walk around shirtless all the time, and then a friend knocks at the door, and I'm like, stop being
I do that for you, baby.
You're right. I'm blessed. Okay, and then don't overbook yourself. So going back to kind of a schedule thing is set aside time in the week that you're not planning to host people. So that way you have time dedicated for hospitality within your home, and you also have time dedicated for those unexpected guests, which we'll transition to next. But that being said, with your schedule, we were talking about this recently. We really want to be intentional organizing this, but especially if you're not one to practice hospitality regularly and you want to incorporate that into your life more, that's not a problem we have. Without even trying, we'll have I don't think a few days go by without someone coming to our home, which is such a blessing. Mm-hmm. So we are always having people come in and out of our home. But if we were trying to incorporate that more, this would be helpful. And even just for setting boundaries more on our end, this is helpful to just say like, okay, let's look at the rhythm of our week. When we're usually busy, when we're usually less busy, when the house is the cleanest, and see when would be the best time to just naturally have someone over for dinner. So for example, like for us, we generally practice Sabbath on Sundays, and then I'm getting into a rhythm of, because I'm not doing as much cleaning and things on Sundays, Monday mornings is like the reset day, so that's going to be when my house is pretty much the cleanest, is by Monday afternoon. So that means that Monday evenings or Tuesday evenings would be the best time to host, because that's when my house is going to be the cleanest. It's one less thing to worry about. I can just focus on dinner and not having to like tidy up the entire house, because that's pretty much done. So that would be an example of how to look at your schedule and just fit in with the rhythm and routines of your life already, to incorporate hospitality for people outside of your home. Okay, so moving on to unexpected. I mentioned this a few minutes ago, but leftovers is vital. So this means like making enough food, always with like every meal, making enough food to have leftovers. And you might be like, okay, what does that have to do with hospitality? Let me tell you. I imagine this scenario. A friend knocks on your door and it's 5:30 in the evening. They're coming home from work after a long day, and they said, I just wanted to return this book that you lent me. Thank you for lending it to me. I loved it. You're like, oh, great, come on in, and you chat for a few minutes. They said they had a long day, and they're going home to an empty house, and they've got to make dinner and all these things, and you say, oh, please stay for dinner. We would love to have you. And all of a sudden you realize you already have yourself, your husband, and your 2 children, and you only were making enough food for those 4 people. And you're like, oh, shoot, we don't have enough, and I've already started dinner. What am I going to do?
Send the children to bed without a morsel.
Yeah, and you might do that. And that's okay. You can scrounge it up. You can figure it out. That's not what hospitality is about. Is it being perfect? You could give your kids scrambled eggs and give your guest the food that you were planning for, and that would be fine. But how wonderful is it to be able to tell someone, please stay for dinner. We have more than enough food. And to feed them and then to send them home with a doggy bag. Like, I just think that is so hospitable and caring. So I'm a big fan of that. And then continue that. Let's say no one stops by. That's a real possibility. And then you have leftovers. First of all, life general tip is that's basically meal prepping. Bada bing, bada boom. Yep. You made enough food for 7 people. Only 3 of you ate. Now you've got food for the next 2 lunches and another dinner. So that's just really helpful. That's what we do at home. Anyways, we eat a lot of leftovers. People who don't eat leftovers literally do not understand what their grocery bill could possibly look like. Yeah. Oh my gosh. When we leave a restaurant and Josh sees people leave so much food on their plate and he just is so tempted to eat off their food.
It's a slow walk back out of there.
But yeah, so we love leftovers in general. So that's just a great helpful tip. But then if you were planning, this is a way to have hospitality towards people in your home on nights where things get kind of crazy. So this is literally what happened tonight. Josh, last minute, is planning to drive tomorrow to Palm Springs to look at a car. So tonight, rather than having a normal night at home, we had to drive to the rental car place so Josh could get a rental car and then come back. And then we had to record the podcast, had to put the baby down to bed and all those things. So we ate dinner quickly before we went to the rental car place, and there wasn't time to make dinner. And so we had a ton of leftovers. And so my family was nourished and cared for because in the previous 3 meals that we made, there was a plethora. And so you're caring for people inside of your home.
And extra blessings is that my perspective is the more foods I can mix together in one bowl, the better. So if I can mix 4 meals together instead of just 1, primo.
Yeah, so true. And then another example with the leftovers and an unexpected guest, kind of unexpected, but I had my friend Sarah. We have work days together sometimes, and then a couple days ago she came over, ended up staying a little bit later, and it was getting close to dinner time, and I said, do you want to stay for dinner? And she was like, oh, well, you don't have to. And I was like, listen, we made hamburgers yesterday and we have a ton left over, so I can just whip up some buns and then we can have dinner together. So we were able to feed her because we had leftovers, and I didn't have to sacrifice spending time with her to stop everything and make dinner, although I made buns and we just chatted while I baked bread. So yeah, leftovers are hugely helpful for hospitality, but you didn't know that. Okay, practical prep, always make more food than you need, have allergy-friendly options. We talked about all this. Remember that you're not offering perfection, you're offering yourself. And so if it's leftovers that you're offering someone, that's perfectly fine. You are welcoming them into your home. You're taking a burden off of their shoulders to have to make dinner for themselves or have a place to stay or whatever it is. If you have a way to have space for someone to stay the night in your home, that is super helpful. Right now, we have a guest room. We're going to have someone rent out that room. A friend of ours from church is going to rent out that room, but we also have a futon right behind us, so that will be the new guest bed. Or at our old place, we had a comfy couch and a twin-size air mattress that fit where the coffee table usually sits. And so it was great to be able to say, hey, do you want to just spend the night? It's getting late. We had one of our college girls stay the night. This was a couple months ago, but it was 9 p.m. and it was pretty late for all of us. Love that girl. And she was like, oh, it's a long drive back. And I was like, you could just stay the night. And we were like, ha, 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 ha. But really? And I was like, yeah, really, you can stay the night. So she just stayed in our guest room. And so having that ready, having extra towels, having extra toothbrushes, just these simple things to always be ready for guests and be able to open up your home. That's the point. That's the whole point of God giving you a home and resources, is so you can give them away. So just to be prepared in any way that can. The last point is super important, and this can be for unexpected guests, is probably when it's going to come up most often, but this can be when you're perfectly prepared.
No, this is going to come up most often when you've been preparing for it for a month.
Yeah, that's honestly fair. Okay, women, I'm talking to you, and talking to myself, my past self. I think we've improved a lot, but we have this tendency to caveat everything, especially to Josh's point, when we want it to be perfect. When we've been preparing for it to be perfect, we say like, oh, I made this wonderful meal and I made it from scratch, but it's not exactly, I didn't cook exactly how I wanted it to, and it wasn't like this, and we have caveats for everything, and it comes from this like insecurity of it not being perfect how we want it to be. And so we've said this a bunch of times, but insecurity is rooted in pride. And so you're so focused on perfection that you're not focused on just like giving of yourself and caring for the person in front of you. You're focused on yourself and your appearance. And so that's not what hospitality is about. It's also not hospitable to the person that you're serving, because if you're like apologizing repeatedly for a mistake you made or a thing that you don't think is perfect about the food, which is probably totally fine, then you're making them feel like they have to say like, no, it's okay, or I'm sorry, like, were you not ready, or like, you're making them feel bad for you, and that's not hospitable. That's not caring to the person in front of you. You're like looking to get validation or sympathy or whatever it is you're looking to get from the person that's in your home, or that you're serving, but it's not really about them. And so there's ways to do this. An example that it's not that you can't ever give caveats. So an example is we had our friends Emily and Josh, former clients of ours, now friends, wonderful sweeties, over to our home a couple weeks ago, and I made some burgers and mac and cheese, and I realized right when we were about to eat, I was like, oh shoot, I didn't add any salt and pepper to the mac and cheese. And I was like, you guys, I'm so sorry, I did not add salt and pepper, but here's some salt and pepper you can add to it if you want it. Gonna be some white people food tonight, kind of bland, but it'll be fine. Sorry about that. And it was lighthearted. It was just like recognizing, oops, I made a mistake, but it wasn't, I don't think anyways, and you can tell me otherwise, that it was something that they were like, oh no, like she's gonna feel really bad and we have to make sure that she feels good. We have to say, this is so good, so she doesn't like feel like we don't like it. Like, you don't want to put your guests in that position. It's not hospitable.
I think that's fine. I think this one, like always, has to do with your heart, but also heavily has to do with the timing of it. Because I think a lot of the time it's like, oh, look at how much they're enjoying this meal. Let me tell them how much they're missing out on, that it should have been better. It's typically funny when it shows up. So just consider that. Is it a please praise me? Right.
Are you fishing for compliments or validation?
Just let the people enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or we also tend to do this. This is random, but if someone compliments you, we tend to like undermine ourselves instead of just saying thank you. This is so wonderful. Oh, I didn't even do it how I wanted it to, and it didn't turn out right. Yeah. Just say thank you. I'm so glad that you enjoy it. Like, come back another time. I'll make you something even better next time. Like, you can just like appreciate and be thankful and not add caveats, because that's for pride. It's not about hospitality.
You can say, we're open 24 hours. Come back anytime.
Yeah. So true. 24 hours, except for not past 9:15.
Yeah. 24 hours every 2 days.
Yeah. So anyways, all of that to say, I hope this was an edifying conversation for you. Just remember that your home is a tool, not a trophy. It's a gift for you to turn into a gift for someone else, and just to steward for the glory of God. And then just consider how you can increase your hospitality, if that means inviting more people into your home, looking at your schedule, or just readdressing who you're really being hospitable, or if you're really being hospitable, or if you're more focused on your appearance, if you're caring for the people in your home. There's lots of things to reflect on, so I hope you consider it. And I hope you come back for the next episode. So thanks for listening. Please leave a review and send in a question. And you'll only have 1 or 2 more weeks to be able to send in questions for our Q&A episode that'll be coming up at the end of this mini series of the summer series, right? Yes.
Is that even accurate? I'm not sure. This might fit in where it could be the last week, but I think we're already past it.
well then...
Yeah, I think we're definitely past it. But send us your questions anyway. We'll come back to it.
That's true. You can still send us questions, even if we've already recorded it, because we'll do more episodes in the future. Okay, good to know. I'll know that for future episodes. But yeah, please leave a review. That'd be really helpful for us in spreading the podcast. In fact, share this with just like one friend who you think this would benefit, and you will help our podcast to grow, and we would really appreciate that.
And then share it with the person you think is least interested in hearing it.
Oh, I like it.
Please and thank you. That's whose ears I want to be in.
Oh my gosh.
And I am really getting to bed now.
Okay, great.
You know it. Jesus loves you. Now go and sin no more.